Hello everyone. Welcome to this new installment of Carlson Power Tools in under 10 minutes. I'm Gary Rosen, Carlson's Regional Sales Director for Canada, sometimes known as Professor Landnut. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you all. I hope you're doing well. And if you stick around to the end of today's video, I've got a little treat for you. But for now, I thought we'd start with some emails. Okay, first up, Dear Dr. Wingnut. Bad start. Your videos are okay, but why do you have to start them with those stupid introductions? Do you think anyone really wants to hear about you cutting a hole in your shed or see you blowing leaves? This is serious business, so please don't waste our time. Sincerely, not amused. Well, dear not amused. Deleted. Okay. Next up. Hi again, Gary. The Association of Nova Scotia Land Surveyors has decided that we surveyors are now required to use the metric system exclusively. Many of our deeds, all of our deeds, our previous plans and surveys we've done are in Imperial, so we now have the problem of converting previous field data and plans done in Carlson to metric in the most efficient way. If you could give some thought to my dilemma and let me know what you think is the best way to do this from within Carlson Survey, I would really appreciate it. This is from Ken in beautiful Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Great question, Ken. So let's take a look. Okay, I've got a nice simple drawing here that we can work with. This will be a good example of what we need to do. If we look at settings, we can see that the drawing is set for Imperial units or English Imperial units. It's 20 scale horizontal. We're looking at 0.08 or an L80, L80 text size, Leroy template. Pretty standard stuff. If we check a distance just before we get started, and we could, oh snap, but we're just going to eyeball from this property corner down to here, we've got about 560 decimal units, which in Imperial are decimal feet, of course. So that's what we're talking about here. The first thing we're going to do is work with our point data, and there's an option in here to work with our line work as well. So that'll be pretty straightforward. But first, we're going to export our coordinate file to a new one. Okay, this used to be called copy merge. It's been changed to import export. Took me a little getting used to, but I actually like it now. So we're going to export from the current coordinate file, and we're going to make a new one, and we're going to call it PT9, Power Tools 9, and we'll call this M, excuse me, for metric. All right, so we export all of our points to a new coordinate file. Then we're going to set it as current. We're going to set that coordinate file, metric, as current. So it's identical, but it's a copy. But now we're going to go back to coordinate file utilities, and we're going to use the scale points command. We're going to do all the points. We're going to overwrite the coordinates in the current file. Down here it says it's going to do the current file. It's going to ask us, do we want to select screen entities? We could say no, and we could scale them later, but we're going to go ahead and use this power tool within the power tool and tell it to go ahead and do that at the same time. We're not going to put in a scale factor. It has preset scale factors, which you'll see. We're not going to ignore elevations. We want to use the elevations, and we're going to use a base point of 0, 0. Okay? Now, not a customized scale, but a standard US feet to metric scale factor. So it's going to do it to 16 decimal places. It knows how to do the math for us. So we don't have to look up and type in any conversion factors. Okay, so we're going to go from feet to metric, say okay, and it says select the objects to scale, points excluded. Okay, so we're going to take everything. We're going to window the whole screen, or we could type ALL for all, and we're going to say, yeah, take everything. And it says it's scaled 300 points. And we say, great, exit, and we have a blank screen. So let's zoom extents, and here we are back again. It looks very similar, but it's in a different coordinate space. And if we check a distance, if I say DI and I check this property corner down to this property corner, it's now 168 decimal units, which now are meters. Okay, and all the line work went with it. Everything's in really pretty good shape. So that's one way to super important tool to use to get this type of work done. And that's great. So we'll go ahead and save our drawing because we've accomplished quite a bit. But there's a lot more to think about. So if we now go to our drawing and say, okay, settings, drawing setup, we're going to now switch it to metric. And the software says, do you want to really adjust everything to metric? And I go, yep, I sure do. Now, again, I may have made a copy of the drawing first. I'm working right in this base drawing, or the original drawing. So I probably should have made a copy of that, but that's okay. So we switch to metric, and now we have kind of a whole new world. It says, what's our horizontal scale? Well, now we're talking metric scales. And metric scales are not plotted inches equals feet, decimal feet, like Imperial, like in the States. These are metric. They're not really scales, they're ratios. So 1:100 is 1 millimeter on paper is 100 millimeters on the model. Okay, 1 to 250, 1 millimeter on paper is 250 millimeters in the drawing, which of course is a quarter of a meter. So it's a very different kind of place. Now, if you work in all metric, you know all that. If you work all imperial, you don't. But if you got to work in both, it takes a little practice because it's a little bit of a whole different mindset. Okay, so we're going to go with let's go with like 100 metric, and notice now our text size is 0.2. It was 0.08, which was plotted inches. Now it's 0.2. Now what the software doesn't tell you, and I'm hoping someday it does, it says 0.2. It doesn't tell you what that is, and it's centimeters. Now everyone in metric thinks paper millimeters, but our software is set up that this is not millimeters, it's centimeters. Okay, so you want 0.2 centimeters, which is 2 millimeters, of course, which is essentially about an L80, roughly, 2.5 millimeters. So we're kind of apples to oranges kind of a thing, but we're kind of in the same ballpark if you get my drift. Okay, so we're going to do this and we're going to see what happens. Now you see our points are kind of a mess here, but we've changed the drawing. So now I'm going to say draw locate, and I'm going to say go ahead and redraw everything. And watch what happens is the software rethinks it and says, okay, we're going to redo this. Now what happens is, and I'm showing you this instead of scooting around it, is it did not erase the originals. It did not erase the original. So what you see is there's actually two here. There's a big one and there's a little one. There's an appropriate one and the wrong one. So we're going to fix that. We're going to say points, and we're going to say erase points. And we're going to say by screen, ALL for all. And we're going to say delete from the coordinate file. Of course not. No, which is the default, and symbols and text and attributes, yes, everything. So we get rid of everything, and then we draw them again, okay? Draw locate, and again we say draw them all. Now watch what happens this time. It draws them all in, and now you're looking at metric. Okay, now if I zoom in really close and I check a distance, and I'm just going to eyeball from the top of this number down to the bottom of this number, it's 0.2 meters. So what I'm going to share with you, and I can tell you right now, this is going to be a Power Tools under 10 minutes. That's not under 10 minutes because this is a little bit tricky and I got a lot of stuff I want to show you. So I hope it's useful. I hope you hang in there, but I'm just warning you, this is going to take a little bit. But again, I do have something at the end if you stick around. But anyway, here's what I want to show you. I've spent a lot of time with this because it's a little bit tricky, and I hope this spreadsheet, everybody teases me, my family, oh, spreadsheets, use spreadsheets for everything. I do. But this is pretty handy. And what it's saying is that for 100 metric, 1 millimeter equals 100 millimeters. That means 1 millimeter equals 1/10 of a meter, which means 10 millimeters equals 1 meter. Okay, makes sense. Now that winds up with a dim scale of 0.1. And it's like, really? Yeah, really. And it says your viewport scale for 100, and I always type because I've been doing this for 35 years, zoom 10 XP. It's not 1 over 20, 1 over 30, 1 over 40 imperial stuff. It's 10 XP to get a 100 scale metric viewport, and your text, to get 2 millimeter text, it's got to be 0.2 meter text in your drawing. That's 100 scale. Okay, you look at these others, you go to a 500 scale, and you're looking at 1 meter text, right? Because 1 meter text at 500, 1 to 500, winds up at 2 millimeters. Okay, and here's a good one. 1,000 scale, 1 millimeter equals 1,000 millimeters, which is a meter. That's basically a dim scale of 1 XP for your paper space, and your text is 2 meters because that converts to 2 millimeters on paper. Okay, so the conversions and all of the dim scales and the viewport scaling and your text size, it's kind of a whole nother world. Now, if you work in metric, this is what you work in. You're like, yeah, of course. But if you work in Imperial and you got to go to metric, takes a little practice. And if you got to do both, like Ken, he's in Nova Scotia, he's been doing Imperial, he's got to switch to metric. This is going to be kind of important because this is not the way that he and the others have been thinking, okay? So you got to think about some of those things. So let's go to our drawing. It looks a little small, right? The text looks a little small. Let's look at our drawing setup again and see, what did we go with? Yeah, we went with 100. Let's go with 250, which is metric 250, right? 1 to 250, 1 millimeter, 250 millimeters. Say, okay. Now here's the beauty is Carlson can take care of that for you. Here we go. Just redraw all the points and watch what happens. They come back and now they look about right. 250 looks about right. To me, I mean, visually on this size plan, this is starting to look about right. Now let's zoom in and see. Let's just check a distance, and we'll go from, here to here. Eyeballing it is 0.5. Okay, and here we are. Here's 250. Here's our 250 scale. 0.5 is 2 millimeters. When you plot it at 250, or you have a viewport that's set for 250, it's going to come out just right, okay? And that's what we're talking about. Now, if you look at these, here's some text. How big is this text? Let's look at properties. This is text size. Where's text height? 0.3. Okay, so that's a little bit smaller. So you might want to scale this up. If you want this to be a little bigger, remember this was 0.5, that's 250 scale. This is 0.3, so it's a little small. Well, it's a parcel ID. You might want to scale these up a little bit, maybe twice, scale this, by 2, or, obviously other ways to do it. Just pick this and change the text height from 0.3 to, 0.6 or something like that. But these are the considerations that you got to kind of think about, really. Okay. Here's another one. Let's go to Exhibit A. Here's our sheet. Now, if I go to my page setup and I say File, Plot, and I go Page Setup, Plot Setup, and I made one called M1. I spend some time to do this instead of trying to do all this in front of you, and it's a PDF driver, but I'm on a JISB1 sheet size, okay, metric, and I say okay, and I set it as current. Okay, and now, and I check it. Let's check it. Distance on the paper, right? From this corner, eyeballing from this corner to this corner, 1,031. And again, if you're in the Imperial, if you're in the States and you've only done this, you're like 1,000. Well, yeah, that's about 36 inches. It's a little more, but you're in that ballpark. You're in about a D-size metric sheet, right? So you come into this viewport, and you use this cheat sheet. You say zoom, and for 250, you say VP scale is 4 XP. Zoom 4 XP, and that's 250. If I say zoom 2 XP, that's 500 metric. Okay. If I say zoom 10 XP, that is 100, right? So I'm going to go back, zoom 4 XP. So it's like zoom 4 XP to get 250. Really? But Really, okay. And that's the way it works. So I have a pretty nice sheet now. Um, here's the title block and stuff, and it's set up for metric, and it's ready to go. So we're making progress. We're making some progress. These are all considerations that you've got to kind of take into consideration when you're making this change from one world to another. It really is a very different place. Okay, most of the world is used to this, um, but some places are making these conversions and stuff like that. So, okay, let's look at a couple more things. Okay, if I say in civil, surface, draw surface boundary, and I go 2D polyline on surface limit, that's fine. And it says, what surface do you want to draw? So we're going to go to PT9's data surfaces, and we're going to go PT910. Okay, and we say okay. And it doesn't draw here. It's like, is there something wrong with software? Let's zoom extents. Well, of course, now we're off in space, right? So let's undo that, and let's try this. Let's try this magic power tool, view, zoom, most. Okay, and we're going to go not for most, but for the outlier. That's just like my favorite command. You talk about a power tool. Dave, thank you. That's awesome. Um, so here it is. Here's that surface boundary. I could try and show you where it is relative to the other, but it's a light years away, right? Because we converted everything, right? So it's in the wrong place. So let's go ahead and erase this guy and zoom extents, and we'll go back to where we were. So how do we do the surface? You can't scale it with IntelliCAD or AutoCAD scale command. That's not going to work. You can't scale it with your coordinate file, which is not point data. You could make a new surface with your new point data. You could do all that, but you've got a tin, but it's not metric. Okay, so here's the trick. This is, a lot of people just don't know this. LandXML was invented a long time ago, and it was to convert data from one software to another, primarily. Autodesk kind of launched this idea, and they said, we can convert with LandXML, we can store it in a universal format so that MicroStation was one of the main reasons, try and get into the DOTs, right? So you can convert your data from AutoCAD or Land Desktop or Softdesk or whatever. You could convert your data to a different software. And it works for that. Import, export's been around. It's a great tool. People use it for that quite a bit. But what people don't know, what a lot of people don't know, is if I set this drawing to Imperial, I just set it to Imperial, English, okay? And then I say File, Export, LandXML. Interesting, right? I make a new one. I'll put it in the, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put it in the surfaces folder, data, surfaces, and we're going to call this Power Tools 9, and this is Imperial. Power Tools 9 Imperial, and we're going to say, okay, write that LandXML file in the surfaces folder, and I'm going to select a surface, which is actually going to be in here. It's called Power Tools 9 tin. We're going to take that tin and we're going to write it to a LandXML file. Simple. But that LandXML file is Imperial. It knows that. That's what's key. Now I change my drawing. Watch this. Change my drawing to a metric. Change everything to metric. Yep. And now I import. Watch this. Here comes the magic. We say import LandXML. And it says, which one? And here it is. Imperial. Import that Imperial file. And say, okay, let's go. And it says LandXML units are different than the drawing units. Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm easily entertained, but that's pretty cool, right? So I go, okay, the LandXML is feet, US feet, the drawing is metric, and I say apply scale. Ta-da, and it goes, okay, we're going to write a new tin. What do you want to call it? Well, we're going to put it back in that surfaces folder. Let's see if it's here. Yeah, it is. And we're going to call it PT9, and we're going to call it metric. Tin file, right? And say, okay. And it puts it in the surface manager. There was a checkbox for that. That's fine. We don't really care. But here's what I want to show you is surface, and I say draw surface boundary, and I go, yeah, so draw this surface of metric, and let's see. boom, drops right in place. That's cool. That's cool, because that's your alignments, your surfaces, your lots if you do those, your what else? Parcels, I mean, what else is LandXML? Hydro stuff potentially, you know, English, Imperial to metric, metric to Imperial, LandXML. People don't know you can do that, so now you do. Okay, now here's the problem. Look at the contours. They're 2-foot contours, right? What layers are they on? This is on contour or 1 foot, contour 1 foot. This is contour 5 foot. So that's no good, right? So now we go to surfaces and we say contour from a tin file. Okay, what's the tin file? It's the metric tin. Okay, and let's bring up triangulate contour. We're going to draw contours on contours, metric 1 meter, and we'll put these contour index, and we'll call this metric 5 meter, right? And that's 1, and we'll make this 5. And labels, this should be 0.2. Again, centimeters, right, which is 2 millimeters. I think the rest should be okay. I haven't practiced this one. Hopefully we'll say okay. Look at that. There's my metric contours. About the only way you're going to do that, folks. And then I say view, and I say freeze by picking, and we go get rid of that guy, and get rid of that guy, and get rid of that, and let's get rid of one of these here. So now my text is a little big. I should fix that. But I'm not going to take the time to show you. That was just the text size for metric. Again, 250. My text size. Well, it should have taken care of it, but I have to look at why that didn't come out the way I wanted. But that's not the key. The key is that it's there, and the surface is there too. Let's take a real quick look at view, and let's go to 3D view, and let's go surface file, and let's look at the metric surface. Nope, there it is. It's got a hole in it, but anyway, that's okay. And let's go ahead and add, where is that? Add polyline, add surface, add entities. Well, let's just pick some lot lines and stuff. Well, they're going to be at 0, so that's not going to work. But the contours will work. Yeah, so the lot lines. But there we are. There's the surface. There's all the lot lines down at 0. We could project them up. That'd be a whole nother power tool thing. But anyway, we're converting. We're converting surfaces, and we recontoured in metric, and we got text to deal with a little bit for the labels. But your point data, your line work, your coordinate files, your text, your paper space viewports. Did I show you that? I can't remember. Yeah, I think I did. So this is 250, right, in paper space? Yeah, I showed you that part. So there's a lot to it. Existing drawings and data sets. Now, if you start in metric, you start in metric. But if you got Imperial, like Ken said, there's stuff to consider. There's a lot of stuff to consider. So anyway, there you go. I hope that was helpful. I'm way over my under 10 minutes, but what else? This is the last, I didn't say what the hell, I said whatever. I don't know what I said, but I hope that was useful. This is the last video for 2022, so I get to run over a little, right? And hopefully not amused will not watch this one, I guess. I don't know, don't care. I hope those of you that do see it find it helpful. And again, happy holidays, all the best, safe, sound, spend time with your families. Most important thing, take some time, relax, do some deep breathing, go for a walk in the woods, just think about something else for a while, and have a great holiday. Just take a little time to just be thankful for that we're here. It's been a crazy place, but we're all doing our best. So everybody take care. And as promised, I've got a little treat for you, and I hope you enjoy. I'll just introduce now. This is my wife, my wonderful wife, who had a career of singing for nursing homes, for singing songs from the 20s and 30s that the folks there grew up with, and they remember every word, and brings back all kinds of memories. So she lost that job when COVID shut down the nursing homes, unfortunately, and she's just trying to kind of put that back together. But I asked her, and she approved. She approved. She said, "Sure, I'd be happy to do that." So here's a little holiday greeting from us, and I hope you enjoy, and take care. And we'll see you next year. We'll see what we do next. Okay, take care. Bye bye. Everyone, Jan Rosen, truly my better half.
Hello everyone. This is just a little song Gary and I would like to wish for you this Christmas season. Hope you enjoy it. Happy holidays, happy holidays, while the merry bells keep ringing, may your every wish come true. Happy holidays, happy holidays, may the calendar keep ringing. Happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas, everybody.